Okay, hello. Welcome back to Classic Comics. Boy, StreamYard is going nuts. I don't know what's happening, but I was having a real trouble getting the stream to load. All right, but yes, welcome back to another live stream. So we'll just go ahead and dive right into it here. Now, obviously, the big story, I guess, right now is the box office for Superman. Let me bring that up here. All right. Uh, no, that's not what I want. Okay, hold on. Uh, where, hold on. No, it's in here somewhere. There it is. Okay, here we go. All right. So it looks like Superman's off to a pretty solid start. The general impression I'm getting is that it's doing really well or pretty well here in the States, but overseas it is struggling. All right, this is from Hollywood Reporter. Box office, Superman saves the day for C Studios with $122 million domestic opening and $217 million globally. The Man of Steel is back. James Gunn's Superman, one of the summer's most anticipated tentpoles in the U.S., flew to a solid box office debut of $122 million domestically from 4,135 theaters and $95 million from 79 markets overseas, for an estimated global launch of $217 million. Its somewhat tepid start internationally isn't a surprise, considering the original creators of the comic book hero cast him as an uber-American patriot and savior, a patina that has never entirely worn off. Don't forget that Zack Snyder's 2013 film was titled Man of Steel, not Superman. Indeed, on the newest film's opening day, President Donald Trump posted a meme of himself on social media, clad in tights and a cape. The movie is a seminal moment in rebooting both DC Studios, which has struggled badly in recent years, one of Hollywood's most iconic comic book franchises. Gunn is in a unique position, being both the film's writer, director, and the co-head of the Warner Brothers' own DC, which he was tasked to run alongside Peter Safran by Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav. Superman, costing $225 million before marketing, is their inaugural release. Quote, what we always hoped to achieve with Superman was winning back the trust of our DC fans, and indeed, they have enthusiastically embraced our first entry in an exciting new theatrical universe, said Warner Brothers Global Distribution President David Goldstein. Added Zaslav, Superman is just the first step. Over the next year alone, DC Studios will introduce the films Supergirl and Clayface in theaters, and the series Lantern on HBO Max, all part of a bold 10-year plan. The DC vision is clear, the momentum is real, and I couldn't be more excited for what's ahead. Okay. Superman successfully fended off the dreaded superhero fatigue that has plagued the domestic box office to become the first comic book movie in an entire year to cross 100 million. The last to do so was Marvel Studios and Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool and Wolverine, which was launched to a jaw-dropping 211 million in the summer of 2024. And among all releases, Gunn's movie is the only the third Hollywood title of 2025 to launch north of 100 million, alongside fellow Warner's tentpole, a Minecraft movie, which opened 262 million, and Disney's live-action Lilo and Stitch, which sewed up 146 million in its debut. Crossing the century's mark is no small feat for any movie in the post-pandemic era, and particularly for the troubled superhero genre. DC has been hit hard in particular. Superman is among only 3 DC titles to have opened to 100 million or more in 8 long years after Wonder Woman, which started off with 103.3 million in 2017, and Matt Reeves' The Batman, which debuted to 134 million in 2022, not adjusted for inflation. Another tidbit: Gunn's pick beat Man of Steel, 116.7 million, to rank as the biggest domestic launch ever for a solo Superman film. Okay, I was wondering about that. If it made more in its opening weekend than Man of Steel, it looks like it did just barely. Although I think if you adjusted for inflation, it's probably going to be a little less, actually. But hey, I guess you get your wins where you can get them. In 2006, Bryan Singer's Superman Returns unfurled midweek in North America for a 6-day start of 84 million, including 52.5 million for the 3-day weekend. Snyder's follow-up to Man of Steel was the 2016 mashup Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, which scored the biggest DC opening of all time when earning 166 million over Easter weekend. Until now, Gunn was best known for being the mastermind behind Marvel's blockbuster Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. The second Guardians boasts his biggest domestic opening at 146.5 million. Superman isn't likely to beat that record, but it did supplant 2013's Guardians threequel. So the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which made 118.2 in its first weekend, to rank as his second best, not adjusted for inflation. Superman is banking on a long run thanks to strong word of mouth, with critics and audiences alike embracing the film. The pick earned an A- cinema score from moviegoers, the same grade given to Man of Steel, and ahead of Superman Returns, B+. Let me take a drink of water right quick here, just a moment. Hold on. Okay. Superman is banking, or so I got that. So the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is a stellar 94%, while the critic score is a pleasing 82%. The event title is also playing to an ethnically diverse audience, another key advantage. Heading into the weekend, Superman's opening had been the subject of intense scrutiny. While tracking services predicted a domestic debut of 130 million or more, DC and Warner's were more conservative in forecasting 100 million plus due to a crowded marquee and the dreaded comic book factor. I guess they mean comic book fatigue factor, I imagine is what they mean there. Even rival studios agree the marketplace is presently oversaturated with male skewing fare between Universal's 4th of July blockbuster Jurassic World Rebirth and F1 the movie from Apple Films in partnership with Warner's. Yeah, you wonder why they didn't try and get this out in June. June was particularly early June. There just wasn't much out there. Um, you wonder why they didn't try and get it out then. According to exit polls, 68% of Superman ticket buyers were male, while nearly two-thirds of the audience were between the ages of 18 and 34. While fanboys are known for rushing out on opening weekend, older moviegoers are likely to bide their time and avoid the crowds if they venture out at all. And gender-wise, the makeup of the audience should even out to some degree. Nearly Well, let's jump in here. Nearly 50% of the worldwide gross came from IMAX, Dolby Cinema, and other PLF screens, including 47% in North America. IMAX turned in a notable $30 million. And then they talk about who's in the movie. We know who's in the movie. Writing DC has been a top priority for Zaslav, and his decision to put Gunn and Safran in charge was certainly unorthodox. Writing DC, which had hit hard times, has been a top priority for Zaslav, and his decision to put Gunn. Okay, someone needs to edit this because they did this twice. His decision to put Gunn and Safran in charge was certainly unorthodox. Okay. Proofread, please. Gunn and Safran took over the reins of the superhero label in 2022 with the assignment to reimagine and unify the creative direction of DC under one leadership team by breathing new life and excitement into one of the most iconic storytelling franchises in the world. Zavlov said in his statement, quote, "I remember my first meeting with James 3 years ago. He spoke about growing up in Missouri and how the characters of the DC universe weren't just stories to him, they were like his family. His personal bond with these DC heroes was powerful, and I knew then that James was the right person to bring them to life. His love for the DC world runs deep, and it shines in every frame of his work." Superman is also a win for the entire Warner Brothers film empire. Motion Picture Group chiefs Pamela Abdy and Michael DeLuca have made a remarkable comeback with such hits as a Minecraft movie and Ryan Coogler's Sinners. Superman is the sixth WB title in a row to open in first place, a feat no other studio has achieved. Really? I would have thought Disney had done that, and the fifth in a row to open to 45 million or more, which the studio says is unprecedented. But it isn't the only studio celebrating. Elsewhere, Universal and Amblin's blockbuster Jurassic World Rebirth stopped past the 500 million mark at the worldwide box office in only its second weekend. In North America, it came in second with 40 million from 4,224 locations for a domestic tally of 232 million. It fell less than expected, or 57%. Overseas, it took in 68.1 million for an early global cumulative of 529.5 million. Rebirth came in well ahead of Superman in China, where it is only days away from becoming the top grossing Hollywood title of the year so far, after earning another 10.8 million this weekend for a cumulative of 62.7 million. I guess China likes dinosaurs. Rebirth continues to exceed expectations after posting a 5-day domestic launch of 147.8 million over the long July 4th corridor, including 92 million for the July 5th through 7th weekend, which is considered the official opening number. Still, Jurassic's overall start towered over Superman's, underscoring how Steven Spielberg's dinos provide the perfect summer escape. And I would imagine part of that is because it's just kind of difficult to politicize the dinosaurs. It's kind of hard to do that. Joseph Kosinski's F1 the movie also has plenty of gas left in the tank despite losing IMAX screens to Superman. It dropped just 50% in its third weekend to roughly 13 million from 3,412 cinemas for an estimated domestic tally of 136 million and north of 375 million globally. Universal and DreamWorks Animation's live-action blockbuster How to Train Your Dragon stayed high up on the chart in its fifth weekend as it roared past the $550 million mark globally. It placed fourth in North America with 7.8 million from 3,825 locations for a domestic tally of 239.8 million. Overseas, it added another 13 million to its coffers for a foreign total of 320.9 million and 560.8 million globally. Pixar's ill-fated Elio rounded out the top five domestically with 3.9 million from 2,730 theaters in its fourth weekend as it crossed the $100 million in worldwide ticket sales, including 63.7 million in North America and 53.6 million overseas. At this pace, the film is likely to be one of the lowest grossing titles in the history of the storied animation studio. And then here's just more from Zaslav. I already kind of read that stuff. Okay, so the general sense, and I think this kind of reinforces it, is that this is largely. Oh, I forgot to put my banner up there. There it is. Is that this is doing okay, doing well domestically and not doing great. And it's struggling overseas. Not surprising, really. I do think, if I understand right, I believe that Fantastic Four, there's nothing new next week, right? I believe there's nothing new next week. And then, so it's 2 weeks till Fantastic Four. So, if Superman, it needs to make most of its money in these first 2 weeks. I think that the second week, how it does, if it can have a strong hold in the second week, I think it's gonna do pretty well. It's pretty clear this movie's not gonna make a billion, first of all, not even close. And honestly, at this point, I think it's questionable if it'll make 700 million. And to that point, let me see. To that point, I've got another story here. Hold on a second. Let me bring this up. Okay. Here we go. There it is. And this is also from the Hollywood Reporter. Box office. James Gunn says it's nonsense that Superman needs to make 700 million to be successful. Well, I guess it depends on how you define success. With James Gunn's highly anticipated Superman set to launch his and Peter Safran's new DC universe for Warner Brothers, the filmmaker claims that it, quote, doesn't need to be as big of a situation as people are saying. In a recent GQ, GQ cover story on David Cornsweet, who plays Clark Kent's Superman in the film. Gunn shared his thoughts on the pressure to deliver at the box office amid superhero fatigue in recent years. And by the way, I would mention that I do have my review of Superman up on my channel, so I do hope you'll check that out. And also, please do like the stream while you're here, and sub to the channel also if you haven't. Quote, this is not the riskiest endeavor in the world, the director and co-head of DC Studio said. Is there something writing on it? Yeah, but it's not as big as people make it out to be. They hear these numbers that the movie's only going to be successful if it makes 700 million or something, and it's just complete and utter nonsense. It doesn't need to be as big of a situation as people are saying. While it appears Gunn is trying to manage expectations surrounding Superman, there's no doubt the film is hoping to dominate at the box office given its high price tag. The Hollywood Reporter previously reported that DC suggested the budget for the superhero blockbuster is a net $225 million after incentives and tax breaks. That doesn't include marketing costs, which sources said could be as much as $200 million. Superman centers on a younger Clark Kent who must reconcile his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing while also working as a reporter in Metropolis, blah, blah, blah. Gunn has previously been outspoken about the current state of the film industry, especially superhero picks. A number of picks have flopped in recent years due to superhero fatigue, such as The Flash, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, The Marvels, and Madam Web. However, the filmmaker has explained that superhero fatigue isn't the only reason films have struggled at the box office recently, as unfinished scripts and meaningless cameos have also been contributing factors. And I have to say, because he's repeatedly talked about how, it's all goes back to the writing, and it's always so important about the writing. I mean, honestly, it's not like the writing for Superman is stellar or anything. In fact, I think it's not that great. It's not terrible, but it's certainly not impressive. And there's a number of plot holes in the thing and just some stuff that doesn't make sense. But and another thing is they talk about the budget being 225 million. One thing I noted when watching the movie is just it's actually is pretty cheap looking. It doesn't look like a lavish production. The cinematography isn't particularly great. It doesn't look like this slick, huge, costly production. And I don't know. I mean, I wonder how much this really cost. And if it was 225 million, where'd all the money go? Because a lot of it just looks like a CW show to me, honestly. A lot of the sets, I mean, Superman's costume looks kind of cheap, honestly. Um, and if you haven't seen the movie yet, a big part of the movie is about this one nation called Baravia, which is invading or threatening to invade a neighboring country called Jarhanpur. And we see several images of Jarhanpur, and Jarhanpur is basically just like this kind of dirt field with a bunch of people like milling around. I mean, it's with like 80 people just sort of hanging around in it. And like that's the country or something. I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of money on the screen, honestly. And the CGI, I mean, some of the CGI, for the most part, it's good, but there are some CGI shots I thought were pretty bad. There's this one character who's an infant and is CGI, and it doesn't look good at all. It looks really bad. But as far as it not needing that amount of money, yeah, I mean, I've heard different things anywhere from double to triple what it costs to make in order for it to turn a profit. Because, the theaters get a certain amount of money, and then you've got taxes and whatnot, of course, and then all the marketing expenses. So, I mean, obviously, it's got to make at least, I think, 500 million probably to be anything close to profitable at all. And honestly, I think it's not going to make much more than that. I'm originally was thinking like maybe 750 to 800 would be reasonable, but after this, I'm thinking, it's probably going to be closer like 550 to 600, something like that. Enough that it will make some money. It's going to be kind of like Man of Steel. It's going to make some money, not a lot of money, but some enough for Warner Brothers to justify plunging ahead and doing this. The problem is what they've got coming after this. They mentioned the Supergirl movie and they mentioned the Lantern show. And both of these things were written or are being written by Tom King, a comic book writer who is terrible. I mean, Lanterns, it's Tom King and what's his face, Damon Lindelof. I mean, my God, two worst choices for for writing a series. I really can't imagine. So Lanterns is going to be awful. I'm just going to go ahead and predict it, and I've predicted it before. They're going to kill Hal Jordan off in that Lantern show. I have no doubt they will kill him off at the end of that. And Supergirl, that is based on a comic written by Tom King, so I expect that to be crap too, honestly. So I think this is going to be the peak of the Gunverse right here. This is going to be the most successful thing in the Gunn's DC universe, and this clearly is going to be marginally successful, if at all. I think it's still a bit of an open question. Okay. And speaking of other projects that are coming, so let me talk about this right quick. This is another DCU related thing. And this is from Screen Rant. James Gunn's Justice League reboot and Superman spinoff plans outlined in new DC Universe report. James Gunn's DC Universe may already have plans for Superman spinoff projects and a roadmap to a Justice League reboot movie, according to one DC report. The Superman movie starring David Corenswet as the Man of Steel is finally hitting theaters this weekend, helping flesh out the DCU timeline for the new shared franchise. But Gunn's Superman film is only the beginning, as the DCU's Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters has several movies and TV shows in the works at DC Studios. While a Justice League project may not have been announced initially, a new update may finally shed light on what DC has in mind for the iconic team. According to a new Wall Street Journal report, DC Studios is considering not one, but two Superman spin-off TV shows based on specific movie characters. According to, quote, a knowledgeable person, Wall Street Journal reports that one would be for Eddie Gathegi's Mr. Terrific, while the other would be a spin-off for Skylar Gazando's Jimmy Olsen. Them doing a Jimmy Olsen show would be kind of fun. I would actually kind of like if they would do it, kind of in the vein of the old Jimmy Olsen comics from the Silver Age, where it's just totally wacky stuff with him like, him going through some bizarre transformation, like he gets a curse that turns him into a werewolf, or he falls in love with a robot, or an alien every week or some just wacky stuff like that. I think that would be a lot of fun. They probably won't do that though. The Wall Street Journal report addresses that the plan for DC Studios is to release at least 2 live-action movies a year, as well as an animated one, along with numerous DCU TV shows, primarily for HBO Max. The strategy is to reestablish all of DC's most well-known characters before they then, quote, unite in a new Justice League film. Now, this is interesting because back when Gunn first announced this new DCU and the whole Gods and Monsters thing, when he showed most of the phase 1 stuff, what was notable about it is how there really wasn't that much, aside from the Superman movie, there really wasn't that much of content that featured DC's main heroes, their foremost heroes, because they had a Wonder Woman like prequel show that didn't have Wonder Woman in it. Now they did have The Brave and the Bold, which was going to be Batman and Robin. There was that, but there was nothing for the Flash, and at that time there was nothing for Green Lantern, although they now have this Lantern TV show, and there was nothing for Aquaman, those are really their most prominent characters, and along with Captain Marvel or Shazam, there's him too. So those are their most prominent characters, and really aside from Superman and Batman, there really wasn't anything initially. And it seems like they're kind of moving away from that, and I think that's because while I do believe that James Gunn read the comics and liked them for the most part, I think it's also pretty clear that James Gunn, his tastes are not like for mainstream superheroics. He likes more unconventional heroes, and he likes more kind of weird stuff. And honestly, he's not a fan just of straightforward good guys. And he, I think he's a big fan of the Authority and would much rather be doing that than doing Justice League, probably. That's why the Engineer is in Superman, I think. And But I think the studio has basically impressed on them that we need to get our biggest characters out there and make the most of them and do what we can with them, which I think is the right idea. As DC Studio has new Batman and Wonder Woman movies in development, the Wall Street Journal's DCU report is not too surprising since this lines up pretty well with what Gunn has been wanting to do with the franchise. It currently seems the DCU is not looking to rush a Justice League movie until this franchise is properly established. Okay, well, that sounds good. The idea of Superman TV spin-offs for Getheghi's Mr. Terrific and Gazando's Jimmy Olsen is also not shocking. Although whether or not those are the exact concepts that are being considered is unclear. Okay, so these are just rumors, I guess. Whether these projects could happen could also come down to how their characters are received by fans as Superman makes its way into theaters. Well, as far as I can tell, the reaction to Mr. Terrific's been pretty positive, so I wouldn't surprise me at all if they go forward with that. And I like Jimmy in the movie. I thought he was fine. I don't know if the reaction to him's positive enough to justify a TV show, though. It's possible that their respective Superman spin-off shows could evolve into something else, but still have them each be a leading character. However, until Gunn DC Studios and Warner Brothers Discovery make any statements on this DCU report, it remains to be seen if this is actually the strategy that they are working with for the new superhero franchise. While time will tell if this will get confirmed, this is definitely an exciting report for the DCU, especially for the Justice League, if this is the way Gunn plans to get to that team. Outside of Batman and Wonder Woman, this report hopefully means more details on other Justice League characters will emerge sooner rather than later, like the Flash and Aquaman. Given how many rich characters are part of the Superman cast, spin-offs are definitely something that is likely to happen in some capacity. But for now, fans will have to wait and see if the DCU's Justice League plans and the potential Superman spin-offs are happening or not. All right. Where am I at? Okay, so I'm at half an hour already. Okay, here's another DCU related story and Superman related, I guess. So this is from Screen Rant. Black Superman movie was reportedly canceled for being too woke. Okay, the Black Superman movie has been canceled. David Corenswet's take on Clark Kent just debuted in the new DC universe. The highly anticipated film is making waves at the box office already, surpassing projections, which could lead to Superman recouping its budget and then some. While the DCU has its own Superman, another version of the character was scrapped. According to a new DC report from the Wall Street Journal, the Black Superman movie by writer Ta-Nehisi Coates was canceled for being too woke in the eyes of Warner Brothers Discovery's CEO David Zaslav after he assumed the studio, or after he assumed the role, after he assumed the studio back in 2022. That's poorly written. The Pan Superman movie reimagining would have focused on a black Superman in the civil rights era. J.J. Abrams was originally set to produce the Black Superman movie, among other DC ventures. While Zaslav killed the project years ago, the new DC report reveals there is a possibility it could come back. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Black Superman movie could still happen in the future under James Gunn and Peter Safran's DC Studios. Before the report, a long time had passed without updates on the state of the Black Superman movie, with other Abrams DC projects being scrapped and a new vision for the studio coming together under Gunn and Safran. It seemed like there would not be any space left for the project. That notion has now proven to be true. However, with the report leaving the door open for the Black Superman movie to come back under DC Studios, there is a way it could happen. While David Cornsweet is the Superman of the shared DCU, the studio now has the Elseworlds label for DC projects that exist outside the canon of Gunn's DC universe. Yeah, I mean, you could always do it that way, I guess. Much like how Robert Pattinson's Batman will remain separate from the DCU and Matt Reeves's The Batman universe. Or will it? The Black Superman film could exist as an Elseworlds entry. By taking place in the Civil Rights era and focusing on a different Man of Steel, the project could easily exist alongside Corn Sweat Superman. However, the Black Superman movie seems unlikely. The Black Superman movie's cancellation was not surprising. After all that has happened at DC with a change of leadership, recastings, and a new universe, it seemed hard to believe that such a distinct project would work as a new Superman was being established. While the concept showed promise, David Cornsweet's Superman is more than enough on the movie side for now. Yeah, I can't say I'm sorry to see this thing is not going to happen. I mean, set in the 60s during the Civil Rights era. Yeah, great. And Ta-Nehisi Coates. I mean, he does not like white people, just straight up. He doesn't like white people. So it doesn't break my heart that this ain't happening at all. And I'll just leave it at that. There's more I could say, but probably wouldn't do my channel any good if I said it. Okay. Okay. I think I got another. I mean, this isn't exactly a DC story, or well, I guess it is. Yeah. This is from thatparkplace.com. Warner Brothers tried and failed to poach Kevin Feige from Disney Marvel to run DC. And a revelation that might have sent shockwaves through Hollywood a few years ago, the Wall Street Journal has confirmed that Warner Brothers once attempted to lure Marvel Studios chief Kevin Feige over to run DC. That's right. In the midst of its post Justice League meltdown, Warner's quietly approached the architect of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to save its own crumbling superhero empire. At the time, the strategy made sense on paper. Marvel had been creating box office gold and was neck deep in the Infinity Saga, creating a powerhouse interconnected universe that seemed to be invincible. DC, on the other hand, was coming off the box office horrors of Justice League and the implosion of the Snyderverse. Warner Brothers had no clear leadership, no plan, and no roadmap for its superhero properties. Desperate to compete with Marvel's success, the studio tried to do the unthinkable, steal the man behind it all. Well, he wasn't really behind it all. I mean, that's a vast exaggeration. But Feige didn't budge. He stayed loyal to Disney, and Warner's was forced to look elsewhere. Ironically, that rejection may have been the best thing that ever happened to them. And really, it really says something that Warner Brothers was in that place where we've got no clear leadership, we have no plan, no roadmap, we don't know what to do with these characters because at that point it's already, because when did Justice League come out? 2017. So I mean, Marvel, the MCU had already been going since what, 2008 was when Iron Man came out, right? So almost a decade in, and like DC they don't even know what they're doing. They don't even know what to do. Never mind the fact that they've had these characters longer and they've been making superhero movies longer. They've been making superhero movies since the first Superman back in the late 70s, and yet it's like there's no institutional memory there of how to handle this stuff. And it's like they don't even know their own movies. I don't know. It's so frustrating. And saying that Feige was behind it all, that's ridiculous, because Feige wasn't even really running things up until I think around Winter Soldier. I think somewhere around Winter Soldier, he took over. So most of those early movies, he didn't really even produce them. Or if he did, he wasn't really calling the shots that much. Because I think at that point it was still largely, I think Favreau and Ike Perlmutter still had a lot of say in what was going on, and they did as much to sort of set things up as he did. While Feige was once hailed as the gold standard of franchise filmmaking, his reputation has taken a major hit in the years since Avengers Endgame. The post-2019 MCU has been plagued by box office flops, streaming bloat, and declining audience interest. The Marvels became the lowest grossing MCU movie of all time. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania failed to launch the multiverse phase and alienated critics and fans. Eternals, Captain America: Brave New World, Agatha All Along, Ironheart, She-Hulk: Secret Invasion, and Thunderbolts, among others, all suffered from poor reception or performance. Major storylines have stalled, stars have exited, and Disney Plus fatigue has set in. The once flawless machine now feels broken, and even Marvel diehards admit that the brand is in disarray. Feige, who was once untouchable, now seems adrift. Long after Feige declined, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav began reorganizing the entire DC structure. In 2022, he appointed James Gunn and Peter Safran to run the newly created DC Studios, a move that unified film, TV, animation, and games under one roof, mirroring the Marvel model Feige pioneered. Gunn, best known for Guardians of the Galaxy, had already proven he could work within a superhero sandbox while keeping a distinct creative voice. Safran brought producer experience from both Aquaman and the Conjuring franchises. The two now oversee every major DC project, from theatrical blockbusters to streaming series. Their first major test, this week's Superman Reboot, written and directed by Gunn himself. Reviews for the film are mixed, and it will be interesting to see how it performs in its opening box office weekend. It's the ultimate what if scenario. Had Feige jumped ship, DC may have enjoyed short term credibility, but long term disaster. Would he have applied the same multiverse overcomplication, overextended streaming output, social justice heavy content, and inconsistent tone that now plagues the MCU? I doubt he would have done the multiverse thing. I could be wrong, though, because, I mean, they didn't do that till after they'd already done the whole Thanos thing. So I don't think he would have. Overextended the streaming output. I think that would have happened anyway. I think that was more coming from up above, from Iger and from the board of directors and that kind of thing. So I don't know, probably not, but the social justice heavy content, yeah, that would have happened. That would have happened anyway. And the inconsistent tone, that probably would have happened anyway too. Zavlov wanted Marvel-style results, but by being forced to look elsewhere, he avoided what many are seeing as Feige's collapse. Gunn doesn't carry the burden of years of declining returns. He's betting everything on Superman, and the early numbers suggest audiences are at least curious. Yeah, I think so. Warner Brothers failed attempt to steal Feige may have seemed like a loss at the time. I mean, honestly, they were pretty foolish to think that they could get him anyway. Why would he leave Disney where everything was going great and come over to DC, which was a total crap show? Well, I mean, why would he? Why would he do that? But in hindsight, it may have saved DC from inheriting the exact problems Marvel is now trying to solve. Instead, DC Studios gets a fresh start, a unified vision, and a new creative voice who hasn't burned out yet. It's just going to be interesting to see whether that vision is something that DC fans connect with. I'm guessing most won't, but we'll see. Gunn and Safran may not be Feige 2.0, but that's precisely the point. Sometimes not getting what you want is the best thing that can happen. But with the new DC team facing their first major test this weekend, the decision to hire Gunn and Safran might be a huge triumph or account to nothing more than switching seats on the Titanic. All right. 40 minutes? Okay, yeah, so this is going to be a pretty short one. Let me take a drink of water again right quick here. All right. Now, this next story is from superherohype.com. Why Marvel, DC, and Star Wars are not going to Comic-Con this year. Key franchises such as Marvel, DC, and Star Wars are reportedly not attending this year's San Diego Comic-Con. This means fans won't receive announcements or updates related to any of the studio's upcoming movie releases. Over the years, SDCC has been a major platform for big studios to market and build hype for their future projects. However, the absence of these studios from Hall H this year has sparked several questions about whether the SDCC event is still worth their time and investment. It is quite a change, isn't it? I mean, you went back a few years, like right before the COOF and all that. I mean, San Diego Comic Con had become a huge deal. It was just a tremendously important part of the entertainment schedule. According to insiders, money and timing seem to be the factors that have made DC, Marvel, and Star Wars sit out this year's SDC. A top executive told The Wrap about their thoughts on SDCC's effectiveness as a marketing tool for major studios. Moreover, they also addressed the challenges of the amount of money and time the studios invested in attending this event. Quote, I think it's expensive to go and hard for movies to really pop there now and move the needle. It used to feel like a must, the top executive said. Additionally, this year, for major studios like DC and Marvels, it has been mostly a bad time. A marketing executive revealed that studios usually book a slot 6 months in advance. However, they evaluate the content at hand and then decide what to show the audience. That said, Marvel and DC are set to release Fantastic Four First Steps and Superman, respectively, the same month as SDCC. Given their releases are closer to SDCC, the executive explains that it's not the right time to market these movies, as most of the promotional material is already available. The executive elaborated, quote, you really don't want to do something with a movie opening a week or two in Hall H because it's like I've seen so much of the campaign already, there's no surprises left. Despite studios sending out film panels, fans can look forward to DC Studios doing a Peacemaker Season 2 panel. Oh, joy. With co-chief James Gunn and co-star John Cena in attendance. Can't wait for that. I am surprised there's nothing though from Star Wars. You think that they'd be doing something for that Mandalorian and Grogu movie. When is that coming out? When, when is that? Let me check. When is that supposed to be coming? Uh, Let me check that here. Uh, okay. Release date, so May 22nd of next year, so the beginning of next summer. I don't know. You think they would do something with that? You think they would have just like some concept art or production stills or something, if nothing else. I mean, that they're completely skipping it. I mean, that surprises me. Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. Here's another one. And this is from IGN. Warner Brothers denies reported wanted a Michael Bay Superman movie starring Henry Cavill before James Gunn was brought in to reboot the DCU. So Warner Brothers reportedly wanted Transformers director Michael Bay to make a Man of Steel sequel starring Henry Cavill before the DC universe was overhauled and James Gunn set about rebooting Superman. According to the Wrap execs, Mike DeLuca and Pan Abdi attempted to pull together a, quote, standalone Henry Cavill-led Superman film going in 2022 with Michael Bay eyed to possibly direct. This effort was made prior to bringing James Gunn and Peter Safran in as the new co-heads of DC Studios, which was announced in October of the same year. Warner Brothers reported attempt to bring Cavill back to wear the cape. That said, those attempts clearly fell through, which gave way to bringing Gunn and Safran in to reimagine the DCU, which in turn quickly led to Cavill's exit from the Superman franchise in December of 2022, with just 2 months after the co-heads were instated. Obviously, since then, Superman has gone in a completely different direction from the days of Cavill past. David Corenswet, who is perhaps best known for his role at this point for his roles in Ty West's Pearl, and the Ryan Murphy Netflix series Hollywood is taking over the coveted role in James Gunn's reinvention of the franchise, with marvelous Ms. Maisel star Rachel Brosnahan starring as Lois Lane alongside him. Plus, Nicholas Hoult rounds out the core three as Lex Luthor. That said, it's not hard to imagine what Bay and Cavill would have done with one more shot into the sky. For their parts, though, those two are plenty busy. Cavill is set to appear in several upcoming projects, including a live-action Voltron movie and a live-action reboot of Highlander, while Bay recently put out a parkour documentary called We Are Storer. Okay. He's also said to be doing the Skibbity Toilet movie that we're all trying to forget was announced, but he took to social media to deny directing that thing last month. Is the yeah, I hope one would hope so. And I've also I had heard, and I don't know if it's true, that they actually were looking to recast Cavill after the first Man of Steel. After that, they were looking to actually replace him with someone else. Even before they decided to pivot away from the whole Snyderverse thing, they were already looking to replace him. Again, that's just a rumor. I don't have any proof of it, but I've heard that. All right, what else? Where are we at time? 47. Yeah, okay. So this is gonna end pretty quick. I've just got a couple of stories left here. Okay, let me go with this one. Surprisingly little MCU stuff this week. Usually that's most of the stories I'm covering. Okay, this is from 9meters.com. Plans for Venom 4 at Sony as the series likely ended with The Last Dance. If you were hoping to see Tom Hardy return for Venom 4, the latest updates suggest you may be waiting a while, if it ever happens at all. Venom 3 The Last Dance was released on October 25th, 2024, and Sony Pictures has made no official announcement regarding a fourth installment in the franchise. Venom The Last Dance ended up grossing a total of $478.9 million worldwide, with 139.8 million domestically and 339.2 million internationally, making it the lowest grossing film in the Venom franchise. With the momentum trending downward in the series and with costs going up, there doesn't seem to be an appetite to continue. So it's likely that the story ends in a trilogy, closing the book on Eddie Brock's current arc. The Venom trilogy has been one of Spidey's most financially lucrative ventures outside of its core Spider-Man films. So the first Venom made 856 million worldwide, the second made 507 million, and then the third made 477 million. Yeah, I think they really just I think the success of the first Venom film gave them kind of a skewed view of just how popular Venom was and overestimate. I mean, Venom, I've never been a particular fan of Venom myself. I mean, I know there is a certain cohort of comic fans that are huge Venom fans, but I don't think they're really that big. But then I think the same thing about Deadpool, and that thing's made tons of money. So what do I know? While The Last Dance saw a modest drop compared to its predecessors, it still performed well given the crowded release window and shifting audience preferences in the superhero genre. However, Sony positioned it as a finale, not a springboard for more direct sequels. The film's title alone was a clear signal this was Eddie and Venom's last waltz, at least for now. And particularly, I think after this, of course, the next movie after that for Sony was the Craven movie, which was a total flop, and it was pretty much after that came out and failed completely that they pretty much just shut down this whole sort of shared Spider-Man universe that they had been trying to get going. The third installment tied up loose threads from both Let There Be Carnage and the multiverse chaos of Spider-Man No Way Home, with Eddie and Venom now fugitives navigating a world that increasingly views them as unstable threats. The tone was darker, more reflective, and aimed to give emotional closure to the Brock-Venom bond that had been the heart of the series. Despite the trilogy's conclusion, the door isn't entirely closed on the character. Tom Hardy has publicly expressed interest in continuing the role, especially in the form of a long-rumored crossover with Spider-Man. In a 2024 interview, Hardy admitted that a Venom Spidey encounter got close, but never materialized due to shifting studio priorities and timelines. Sony still holds the cinematic rights to Spider-Man and the associated Marvel characters, including Venom, Morbius, and Kraven, and is continuing to build out its Sony Spider-Man universe. This leaves room for the symbiote to reappear, even if not in a Venom 4 film. Some fans speculate that spin-offs are a multiverse event that could revive Eddie Brock or introduce alternate universe symbiotes like Agent Venom, Toxin, or even Null, the god of symbiotes. One of the more tantalizing possibilities is a Venom appearance in Marvel Studios' Avengers Secret Wars, scheduled for May 2027. If Marvel and Sony find a way to coordinate, that film could serve as a playground for multiverse cameos, including Tom Hardy's Venom, especially given how the character was briefly featured in a post-credit scene of No Way Home. Though there's no Venom 4 on the docket, the fan base is far from giving up. Fan-made trailers like the viral Venom 4 King in Black continue to generate buzz on YouTube, fueling hope that Venom symbiote days aren't entirely over. For now, Sony seems focused on its upcoming projects, including, okay, yeah, so it's a Spider-Woman project, the long-developing Sinister Six. Still trying to get that going, huh? Whether Venom finds his way back into that mix is a big question, but in the comic book movie world, no goodbye is ever final. All right. Yeah, I mean, my guess is they'll reboot and try. I don't know, to me, it seems like the most sensible thing is to try and work out some kind of deal with Marvel where they can put Venom and other Spider-Man related characters in the MCU. That seems like the most workable thing because I mean, outside of Spider-Man, they're going to have trouble getting things going by taking these villains and trying to build franchises around them. Hey, Gwagnar. I don't know if there's any Spider-Man character that I want to see a solo movie about besides Spider-Man himself. Yeah, I think that's generally going to be it. I think Morbius could work as as a solo property. But that Morbius movie was just, ugh, it was not good. And it didn't help that it had Jared Leto in it. I mean, Jared Leto, I think, could be a decent Morbius, I guess, but I swear that guy has never been he's never put butts in seats. The guy's never really had a big hit, has he? It still kind of baffles me that Disney was willing to build their Tron sequel around him. Okay, one more here. What we got? So what, 5:54? Okay. Okay, and this is from Cosmic Book News. Daredevil Born Again canceled after season 2, hence Vincent D'Onofrio. The MCU fanboys better show up in droves and support Daredevil Born Again season 2 when it comes out, as according to Vincent D'Onofrio, third season is dependent on the views. Well, if it's not going to be any better than season 2, then why bother? And I mean, I don't have Disney Plus, so I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched bits and pieces, of scenes on YouTube, and it looked bad. It looked like crap. We know from season 1 that doesn't look good, which could signal that Daredevil Born Again will be canceled after season 2. D'Onofrio, who has been fielding criticisms on social media regarding how Marvel has handled Kingpin, and not in a good way, opened up about the potential of Daredevil Born Again in season 3. Speaking with awards buzz, D'Onofrio revealed season 3 isn't set in stone. Quote, if they allow us to continue, we have a plan, D'Onofrio said. It's up to the fans to watch, to get excited. It's up to us to please them and get the story right, but we're looking forward in a big way. Well, I agree that it is. It is up to them to please the fans and get the story right. And I'm not criticizing D'Onofrio here. I think he's an actor and he's doing what he's told to do. But I mean, I'm sorry, but the writing on that series was crap. It was awful. As I first reported, Daredevil Born Again was retooled to align the series more closely with the Netflix show. However, I didn't think they went far enough. It seems like I wasn't the only one, as Daredevil Born Again is the first MCU Disney Plus series not to make the Nielsen charts, which obviously means the viewership is poor. According to D'Onofrio, if the viewership doesn't pick up with season 2, there might not be a season 3. They are bringing back Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones, so hopefully things continue to improve. The final episode of season 1 also seems like they are finally going in the right direction. So it looked bad, but hey, the last episode of the first season looked pretty good. It looks like they're going to get things right. Yeah, sure. Sure. Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is expected to be released March 2026. All 9 episodes of Season 1 available on Disney Plus, blah, blah, blah. Well, better late than never to quote, get it right, right? I mean, if they're going to write shows like that, then this is what they get. This is what you get. All right. So 7:57. All right. So I got one more story and then we'll wrap it up here. Now, if you follow my channel at all, I did a video a while back about the bankruptcy of Diamond Distributors, which is the main distributor for comics in North America, obviously. And I've also talked on the live stream how that's impacting comic books, comic book creators and comic book companies. But another thing that they play a big role in is the tabletop RPG industry. Let me grab a drink of water again right quick here. Okay. And the RPG industry is being hit pretty hard too, especially these smaller companies. This is from ICV2.com. Paizo gets caught in the diamond mess. Paizo Inc. announced that some of their upcoming Q3 releases will not be available at major bookstores or Amazon as a result of the Diamond comic distributor's bankruptcy. Paizo has been caught in the wake of the Diamond mess, as they were partners with Diamond Book Distributors for book channel distribution, including Amazon for distribution of Pathfinder and Starfinder products. And if you don't know, Pathfinder is basically a Dungeons and Dragons kind of pastiche. It's a Dungeons and Dragons knockoff. I think it's a good one. I'm not dismissing it, but it's basically D&D under another name. And Starfinder is a kind of sci-fi version of it, and are no longer shipping their products to Diamond, with Paizo evaluating alternatives for book channel distribution and the slow pace of bankruptcy proceedings. August and September of 2025, Paizo releases will not be available at chain bookstores or Amazon. This affects the following titles: Starfinder Player Core, Starfinder Player Core Retail Edition, Starfinder Player Core Special Edition, Starfinder Combat Pad, Starfinder Murder in Metal City Deluxe Adventure, Starfinder Infinity Deck Card Game, Era of the Eclipse, a Starfinder Novel, Pathfinder Battlecry, Pathfinder Battlecry Sketch Edition and Special Edition, Pathfinder Adventure Path number 217, Death Sails of Wine Dark Sea, Pathfinder Flip Mat Siege, Starfinder GM Core, Starfinder GM Core Special Edition and Retailer Edition, Starfinder Galaxy Guide Pocket Edition, Starfinder Player Character Folio, Starfinder Flip Mats, Garage Warehouse, Starfinder Flip Mat Command Centers, Pathfinder Treasure Vaults Pocket Edition, Pathfinder Game Night Dawn of the Frogs Deluxe Adventure, and Pathfinder Adventure Path 218 Titanbane. Once again, the lack of availability is only for the book channel, but Paizo expects these items to remain unavailable in that channel for the next several months. On the other side of the coin, this is generally good news for FLGS retailers, as fans can still pre-order Pathfinder and Starfinder books through their stores without competition from the book channel. And so I guess that's a positive side of it. But yeah, so I mean, that Diamond bankruptcy, it's just having a lot of repercussions. All right, that's gonna wrap it up, I believe. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap the stream up here. So I will be doing another Trek Talk this coming Tuesday. I'll be taking a look at the Star Trek Original Series episode Bread and Circuses. I will not be streaming this coming weekend. Starting this coming Thursday, I'm going to be with my National Guard unit, and I'm going to be with them for 10 days. So the next 2 Sundays, I'm going to be with my unit. So it's probably going to be 3 weeks before I come back with another live stream on Sunday night. I will do the Trek Talk this Tuesday, and then this will probably skip the next one. We'll see. But anyway, thanks to those who tuned in for the stream and those who will catch on a rewatch. Again, please do like the stream before we leave, and please do sub to the channel if you haven't already, and check out some of my other videos. As I mentioned, I have put my Superman review up on my channel a few days ago, so please do check that out. And I will see you all next time. Have a good evening.